Okay, welcome back. Mick Rooney, Radio Spile. We're going to return to, well, as you've seen from the thumbnail, the GABBY PETITO case. As you've seen from the subheading, it's final timeline and the final FBI statement on the case. I contemplated with some developments last week doing an update on this. I'm actually glad I waited because I thought there was one or two more official shoes to drop, and today, where are we, the 20, well, for you, the 21st of January, we had some more news today, so we'll go through that in a second. What I want to do is pretty much pick up where I left off on the last time I did this timeline, which was back, literally, I think it must be almost 2 months to the day. Yeah, the 20th of November. So literally 2 months since I went through the full timeline. So I'm going to pick up roughly where I left off. Just to mention, I'll try and stick the card in somewhere on the page. You'll see it coming up in grey. A clickable card that you can watch the video. Previously, I did a separate cutout video of the updates on Moab, so you can take a look at that. It'll flash up somewhere here. But for now, I really want to pick up more where on that mammoth 4.5 hour timeline that we went through. I want to pick up pretty much from there, and for me, really, I want to finish this case out now because I think we're done and dusted. And I suggested back in November that I wasn't going to come back to it until there was something substantial. Some things dropped last week, and I held off. And I'm actually glad I did, because since then we've had the independent report into the Moab police, which I haven't covered, and a few other sort of lawyerly developments, and of course the statement today by the FBI. So we're going to go through all that. I'm going to try and do this as quickly as possible. I really want to just focus on kind of what's new. What have we been told now that we didn't know? So that's more my inclination. So I'm going to try and move through this quickly. But just, I can't exactly remember where I finished on the timeline in November on the GABBY PETITO case, but let's pick up here on the 18th of November, because I think I broadcast on around the 21st of November, so it would have been roughly around this point here. Is my, yeah, it is this point here, 18th of November. I'll just go through this quickly. I might have included this in the last timeline snippet. Federal prosecutors will file a motion in Wyoming to drop bank fraud charges against Brian Laundrie once the autopsy is complete and the death cert issued. We know all that ultimately happened. This is obviously, please understand, this was no surprise to anybody. You can't convict a dead person, let alone for a more minor charge like bank fraud. So we kind of knew that that was going to get dropped, and it did. Now let's move on. Memorial bench unveiled in Northport, Florida, for GABBY PETITO, and as I think we were concluding, authorities refused to release any further information, that they are still active in the investigation, and that was on the 22nd of November. So now let's start quickly moving on. Attorney to the Laundrie parents confirmed that Brian Laundrie died by suicide, a gunshot to the head. This is the video I was referring to. I covered this. I went through the District 12 medical examiner's report. I'm not going to go over this again. There's a separate video. I'll either put it in the description box or it'll flag up here as a link now to click if you want to go back and see that. But again, I don't want to repeat and go through information that I've already gone through. This was a separate video that I went through. I think we covered this about the gun and the fact that there was a gun missing from the Laundrie home at the time. Again, we've done all that. In mid-September, the Petito family have been aware of circumstances surrounding the suicide of the sole suspect in Gabby's murder. Gabby's family will not be making a further statement. Yeah, I think we cover that. Now, this is probably where we haven't covered. From the 4th of January, the Petito Smith families and Laundrie families have filed separate cases. Now, these cases related in and around property, personal belongings, essentially estate, and this is what happens in probity cases. This is what happens when somebody dies, to deal with their belongings if they're somewhere else, or who owns them, where do they go, that kind of thing. So a lot of this is really typical legal stuff, and it's not really criminally based. It's just formalities that families who go through these unfortunate tragedies have to deal with. Both families are attempting to obtain possession of personal and estate belongings. The Petito Schmidt family want the return of Gabby Petito's personal belongings, while the Laundrie family have filed for the return of his notebook. We're going to find out a little bit more about that very shortly. Again, we know that the notebook in the case that was found in the reserve park where Brian Laundrie's remains were found, it would have been up to the FBI to ascertain ownership of that. And as regards legal agreements as to ultimately when the case is finished, which is pretty much where we are now, where that gets returned to when the FBI is finished with it. So the FBI would have had to establish ownership of that. We don't know, was it Brian's notebook? Was it in his possession? But we don't know it was Brian's notebook. Was it Gabby's, part of Gabby's belongings? Maybe it was her notebook. We don't know. But we ultimately, I think, will resolve that shortly now. Okay, so that was the 4th of January. Okay, so we know there was legal back and forth between both families' legal representatives. Where are we? 4th of January. This is some stuff from Brian Enton. I'll quickly read over it because I don't think we did cover this. Brian Laundrie's parents are trying to take possession of his notebook. So the intimation there is it is Brian Laundrie's notebook, his property, that is in FBI custody. The attorney, Stephen Bertolino, tells me that this is part of a formal proceedings to administer Brian's estate, as pretty much explained. Bertolino goes on to say Nicole Smith filed to obtain Gabby's belongings that are in the Laundrie home or in police custody. Rick Stafford and I are trying to work out this cordially. Stafford is the Petito family attorney. So Bertolino, Laundrie side, Stafford, Petito Schmidt side. We still do not know what is in the notebook. We're going to find out shortly. Not everything in it, but a crucial bit of it. It was found near where Brian Laundrie killed himself, according to the FBI. Now, I want to go concentrate a little bit more on this now, because this is getting into the nitty gritty of what we haven't really covered. And this dropped on the 12th of January. And it was an independent report into the Moab police officers. You'll recall the traffic stop. Again, I did a separate video. I went through the whole traffic stop with commentary, with analysis. Again, links, have a look at my videos. There's a video there for, or if I can pop up a link to it. Now, I want to stress, these are the findings, okay? This report, if I remember correctly when I looked at it, this is a 102-page report. So obviously we're not going through it all. What I've pulled out is the summary findings of that, and we'll go through that. And if there's anything of note, I'll stop and talk a little bit more about it. So the findings of that independent report into the Moab police traffic stop. Now, just before we go on, one thing I want to say is, it's been mentioned to me a number of times privately by people who contact me through email, Twitter DMs, what have you, and they say, uh, why are they only concentrating on the two officers? Was it, I think, I can't remember the other officer's name. Robbins was one of them. Maybe it'll come up here somewhere. There's another officer. So there was only two Moab police officers. The other two were other state park rangers. This independent investigative report was into the Moab police officers. It had nothing to do with the park rangers at that, the other two park rangers at that stop. So that's why there's very little mention of them in the report. That's not what this report was intending to focus on. It was the behaviour, what was and wasn't done in the police stop by the Moab police officers. Now the findings, both officers, which is why they refer to the two officers, are to be placed on probation, or if they are still on probation, that probation be extended. A review of Officer Robbins, that was one of them, FTO program to determine if he needs to complete additional time on field training. What we learned about this was that Officer Robbins hadn't been on the job too long. I think it was only May excuse me, of 2021 since he started. There was the other police officer was the senior police officer who had, I think, spent 16 years on the force. Report writing training, at least 8 hours recommended. Domestic violence investigation related training, at least 8 hours. Legal training, in addition to attending legal training to ensure officers understand Utah state laws and statutes, I would suggest building a stronger relationship with your local prosecutors. This is the words of the actual author of the investigative independent report. I would suggest building a stronger relationship with your local prosecutors to where, if there are legal questions that officers are unable to answer, that they are able to feel comfortable with reaching out for additional guidance. A review of the report approval processes previously in place to determine if more checks and balances are needed. A follow-up to obtain his statement, regardless of how long it has been and whether or not his statement may be tainted due to the coverage of the case. A review of the software used to transfer files to reduce the risk of photographic evidence being lost in the future. I know you're all saying, Mick, what the fuck does that all? What's that mean? What are they talking about there? Images, graphic, that went missing, files that went missing. This is in relation to, recall back the Moab stop. Do you recall Brian Laundrie standing behind the Ford Transit camper van, and I can't remember which officer it was, one of the two Moab police officers, asking him, was it alright if he took pictures on his phone, his mobile phone, of his injuries, the facial injuries, the hand, the scratches around the neck. It would appear, for whatever reason, those photographs were not accessible by the independent person carrying out this inquiry. Now, it could be a case of after 2 weeks. I don't put too much emphasis on this. It might simply be a case that after 2 weeks, these police officers didn't know what was going to happen, what was going to come about. It could well be that because there was no charges filed, because they were just separated, the couple, Gabby and Brian, were separated for the night, that ultimately, I suspect he probably just deleted the pictures he took, because he thought, well, this is no case here. Nothing was filed, no charges were ever made. And it's likely that's probably not what he's quite admitting, but that's actually what happened. He just deleted the images on his phone. So that reference there, a follow-up a review of the software used to transfer files to reduce the risk of photographic evidence being lost in the future. So that is in referral to that. So basically, it's like, look, guys, whether there's a charge or not, when you get back, when you file your reports, you use the transfer system and you load up every available file, photographic evidence that you have on the day. You just follow it up, and that's the end of it then. And then if you do delete it on your phone, it doesn't matter. It's already loaded to the system. Clearly, that doesn't appear to have happened here. So there was a serious failing there. I don't think it changes overall because we've got it on body cam anyway. Overall policy review. Update applicable policy sections to require photographs of injuries be taken of all those involved, and require asking medical assistance to all those involved, regardless of if they are a suspect or victim. Well, they lost Brian Laundrie's photographic images that were taken on the police officer's camera, so I'm not really sure had they've even bothered, and this is the point being made here by this independent officer looking into this case. It would appear that on the day of the stop, photographs, even though Gabby Petito did have some minor, I think, bruising on the face, possibly around her neck, I can't remember, or her arm, there were no photographs actually taken of those injuries, and it's because they were taking it that Brian Laundrie was the victim in this case. But nevertheless, she had injuries, so why weren't they photographed? And we know from the police stop they weren't photographed, and this is what that is referring to. Implement lethality assessment protocol and policy in all domestic violence cases. So they were the basic findings and the conclusions they reached. Basically, essentially what was said was there was mistakes made, and you need better training, and you need to address the recommendations in the future that have been highlighted, and it's not just in referral to those two police officers. It is in referral to really the entire police force, and possibly on a wider national front, that all police officers perhaps need to revise their training. And the only thing I'll say about that is there's only so far you can go with that. Police officers are ultimately there to assess whether a law has been broken, assess the situation, and decide if a charge needs to be brought. It's unlike what we saw in that Mohawk police stop. It is not police officers' role, as we saw between the two police officers, I think, and a park ranger, to discuss, like a defence lawyer and a prosecution lawyer, the ins and outs if this ever got to court, what happened. That's not their role. They have no place in that role. Either a crime was committed or it wasn't committed. If a crime is committed, charge, and whatever way the chips fall. And that's probably one of the criticisms out of the report as well, before we move on now. Really, it was about there should have been an arrest made. Even if you feel it was unfair to arrest just Gabby Petito and charge her for DV, or arrest both of them. They both have injuries, so something's gone on. So, feck it, arrest both of them. That clearly didn't happen. Gabby Petito's parents did meet with, where are we, what date are we on? We are on the 20th of January now. Petito and Laundrie families reach agreement on the personal items. This is to do with the estates of both parties. Gabby Petito's parents did meet with the FBI in Tampa today. The reason for the meeting is secret right now. Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino says an agreement between the families in regards to property, including the notebook, has been reached. The FBI is not commenting right now. Northport police say they have not received any new information from the FBI. This, by the way, again, 20th of January, So we're literally, a day ago. So when I read this last night from Brian Enton, who's been terrific as far as information on the case is, I knew something was about to drop. Because if the families have literally for the first time sat around a table with their legal representatives and agreed something, then I felt that was the, call it what you will, the green flag to the FBI then to say, right, now we think we can say something or make a statement or do something, because now the families have agreed and we've dealt with the more important details of the estates of both parties who have passed. 24th of January, Petito attorney released a statement on behalf of family. So this really essentially, well, for me, when it's the early hours of the 22nd of January, but for you, it's when I'm recording this. This is Friday, the 21st of January, 2022. So effectively today, I knew there was something big to drop because it was significant that the Petito attorney made a statement, and here it is. Gabby's family would like to thank the Federal Bureau of Investigation, specifically the Wyoming, Denver, New York and Tampa offices, all of their task forces and their assisting agencies. Gabby's family would like to thank the FBI's Victim Services Department for all they have done for them. Victim Services have been there for support from the earliest stages of the investigation and helped their entire family navigate through the worst moments of their lives. We truly appreciate the FBI's diligent and painstaking efforts in this extremely complicated case. The quality and quantity of the facts and information collected by the FBI leave no doubt that Brian Laundrie murdered Gabby. Now, I want to emphasize these are the words of the Petito family's lawyer, okay? This is not some police officer or the FBI saying this. So when I read this and saw this statement being released, I thought something is about to drop, because clearly the family have been briefed that something is about to happen, and it did, literally about 2 hours later. So earlier this evening, finally we get a statement from the FBI. This is not an extensive statement. This is not FBI officers coming out and having a press conference. I never suspected we were going to get that. I suspected it will be in word, it will be a statement, and they've delivered it. So we're going to go through this. It's not that long, but what I want to do is I want to focus on what is new. What are we hearing here that we didn't know? That's what's important. And essentially, where are we now? Or are we done now? So, FBI Denver provides final investigative update on Gabriel Petito case. Yesterday, the family of Gabriel Petito met with the FBI at the Tampa field office. Of course, from the lawyers, we know they were in Tampa. The Tampa field office, as the investigation will be closed in the near future. Okay, the near future, a matter of days, a matter of weeks. I certainly think in a matter of weeks, could even be days, but certainly that's where we are now. This matter is now being closed by the FBI. All logical investigative steps have been conducted in this case, said FBI Denver Division Special Agent in charge Michael Schneider. The investigation did not identify any other individuals other than Brian Laundrie directly involved in the tragic death of Gabby Petito. The FBI's primary focus throughout the investigation was to bring justice to Gabby and her family. The public's role in helping us to endeavour was invaluable, as the investigation was covered in the media around the world. On behalf of the FBI, I want to express my deepest appreciation to the public for the thousands of tips that were provided during the investigation, and to our local, state and federal law enforcement partners for their work throughout the investigation. That's all expected and lovely and all that. I think it's unfortunate that while it does start with the deepest appreciation to the public for the thousands of tips, I think they might have got a long way further to perhaps suggest that this case would never have been solved, and we might still be looking for Gabby Petito's remains had it not been for people like Red White Bethany, the road trippers in the national park where Gabby's remains were found. Had it not been for them, this case could have lasted years. And there's a bit of deference here. On the one hand, collectively to everybody, but I think the FBI might have went further to how important some of the social media tips were and the involvement of some other van lifers and people in that area. The FBI opened its investigation into the disappearance of Miss Petito on September the 12th, 2021, upon receiving reports from Gabby's family that Miss Petito was missing. The FBI, working with federal, state and local officials, organised a search of a remote area within the Grand Teton National Park and the Bridger Teton National Forest. On September 19th, 2021, the search team located the remains of Miss Petito at the Spread Creek dispersed camping area, near where she and Brian Laundrie had been together. Miss Petito was found approximately 3 weeks after her last known communication. The Teton County Coroner's Office subsequently conducted Miss Petito died of blunt force injuries to the head and neck with manual strangulation. While law enforcement investigated all logical leads, the investigation quickly focused on the last person believed to see her alive, Mr. Laundrie. Now, what's important there, really, okay, look, it's all, you might go, it's all blah, 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 but this is the first key point in this statement, that we have something new that we didn't know. And there it is. Oh, hold on. We knew that Gabby Petito was strangled. Manual strangulation. Very personal. What we didn't know was whether other injuries, was there something else that also partly contributed to her death? And now we do know there was blunt force injuries to the head and neck, along with the manual strangulation. So this is the first new thing that we're learning that we didn't hear in the Gabby Petito autopsy results, which again, let's face it, were very brief. Literally, there was no need. A letter would have done instead of that comical Zoom press conference that was conducted by the the head doctor in the autopsy. Now, excuse me. Throat gets very dry when I'm talking a while. Now, the timeline of the investigation. There's one or two things in here as well that we didn't know. The FBI investigation revealed that between August the 30th and September the 1st, 2021, Mr. Laundrie had used Miss Petito's debit card without authorization on his drive back to Florida from Wyoming. We knew that, okay. After Miss Petito's death, there were several text messages identified between, let me highlight this. After Miss Petito's death, there were several text messages identified between Mr. Laundrie's phone and Miss Petito's telephone. Now, we knew that possibly, okay, when the detectives were sure that the and I believe it was around the 27th or 28th of August that Gabby Petito was murdered. There was a text message later after that date. I believe around the 29th or 30th. I can't be exactly sure. I think it was the 29th or 30th. I have to look back in the time. It's not relevant, but it was after the time they believed she was dead. We knew that, and the suspicion was it came from Gabby's phone to her mother, but the suspicion was this was not written by Gabby. However, we're now hearing that Brian Laundrie, using his telephone, his mobile cell phone, had sent several text messages to Gabby Petito's phone. We've never known whatever happened to Gabby Petito's phone. But we do now know that Brian was texting Gabby after the act. So this was clearly an act of covering his tracks, making it seem, if evidence was ever found, that Gabby was alive, that he was texting her when in fact he knew that that wasn't the case. So he was essentially covering his tracks with these text messages, much as we suspect he was doing with the text message to the mother that, Stan has been trying to contact me, will you try and voicemail or call Stan, I don't have coverage here, that kind of thing. So the timing and content of these messages are indicative of Mr. Laundrie attempting to deceive law enforcement by giving the impression that Miss Petito was still alive. On the 15th of September 2021, Mr. Laundrie's Ford Mustang was recovered from the T. Mabry Carlton Jr. Memorial Reserve and the Myakkahatchee Creek Park in Northport, Florida on the September 17, 2021. Mr. Laundrie's parents reported him missing shortly after law enforcement conducted a welfare check at their residence. On September the 18th, 2021, law enforcement officials commenced an extensive search of the park where Mr. Laundrie's vehicle was parked and did not locate Mr. Laundrie. The area where Mr. Laundrie's remains were later found was part of the search area, but the area was submerged due to recent flooding at the time of the initial search. On September the 22nd, 2021, the U.S. District Court for the District of Wyoming issued a federal arrest warrant for Mr. Laundrie. The warrant was issued in pursuance of a federal grand jury indictment for violation of federal statute 18 U.S.C. use of unauthorized access devices. This was in relation to the bank fraud. Mr. Laundrie's activities following the death of Miss Petito on the 7th of October 2021. Use of unauthorized related to Mr. Laundrie. Okay. Now, on the 7th of October 2021, after law enforcement made a request through the Laundrie family attorney Stephen Bertolino, the Laundries provided personal effects to law enforcement which were to be used to assist in the search of the Myakkahatchee Creek Environmental Park. On the October 20, 2021, after water had receded from the area and the park was reopened, Mr. Bertolino notified law enforcement that Mr. Laundrie's parents intended to return to the park to search for Mr. Laundrie. Law enforcement officers were present when Mr. Laundrie's parents located an item in the park later determined to belong to Mr. Laundrie. There's a lot of Mr. Laundrie there, Brian Laundrie and Christopher Laundrie being the father and Brian Laundrie. Upon further search of the area, investigators found human remains later confirmed to be Mr. Brian Laundrie, along with a backpack, notebook and a revolver. Now, if I'm not mistaken, there was no mention of a revolver other than we knew from the autopsy that Brian had shot himself. And obviously, you shoot yourself, the gun stays in your hand or drops pretty much where you are. And to my recollection, there was no mention of that. There was talk of a gun being found in fucking Photo Park and, miles away, which had nothing to do with this. In fact, it was a vintage gun from years back. So, again, new information. They did find the revolver, and one would assume it was the revolver that was missing from the parents' house that had been reported. That they'd done an inventory of all their armory, their guns at the house, and they reported that one gun was missing. Clearly, it looks like this was the revolver. So the intention was clear as to what Brian Laundrie was leaving the house and going to the Carlton area park for. A review of the notebook revealed written statements by Mr. I wish they'd just use the name. Statements by Brian Laundrie claiming responsibility for Miss Petito's death. Now, this is probably the most significant statement in this entire FBI statement. It's probably the most important line in it. It essentially tells us that evidence was found in the notebook, effectively confessing to the murder written by Brian Laundrie. And that fills in an awful lot of gaps. On November the 23rd, 2021, the District 12 Medical Examiner's Office in Sarasota, Florida, released its report on the manner and cause of death of Mr. Laundrie. The report concluded Mr. Laundrie died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. I won't, finish it here, really. The FBI thanks all the law enforcement. I won't read that and go through it. That's really it. But what's frustrating is that it's very clear from this that pretty much, at least from November the 23rd, law enforcement and the FBI knew pretty much everything that they're saying now in this statement. They knew then. They clearly were quickly able to decipher what was in the notebook, the confessions within the notebook, that Brian did carry out the murder of his girlfriend Gabby Petito, and they knew it then. And one does wonder, why the hell, what was the point in waiting this long? Why wait 2 months later? Let's do this after Christmas. Sure, no rush at all. I don't know why they waited. It's clear from this statement that they pretty much knew Brian Laundrie did this. There was never anybody else involved. There was never another suspect. He was always the person we believed. Carried this out. He admitted it in the notebooks when we dried them out and examined them. They knew all that in November. Why did they wait? What was... Gabby Petito was dead. Brian Laundrie was dead. It was becoming clear that they weren't going to make any charges against the parents. Stephen Bertolino has effectively confirmed that tonight, that was the assurance he's got from the FBI, that this case is closed. They do not intend proceeding any further with it. So why have they waited 2 months? There isn't anything that's changed beyond the ramifications of the looking after the estates after the deaths of both parties and their belongings. Other than that, there was little more to resolve. So I don't know why this couldn't have been released back in November, but however, that's really where we're going to finish. I'm pretty much done with this case now, because I don't think anything more is going to happen. The only thing I can surmise is that when the case is officially formally signed off, and they said they're coming close to signing it off, effectively they've told us it is closed now, and in the near future they'll formally close it. My understanding is they must load to the public record the information that they have. You know, some of that for certain legal reasons might be still somewhat redacted, but if that is loaded to the public record, then I suspect we will possibly see some evidence, perhaps even visual photocopied evidence of the notebook coming out into the, and any journalist, in fact any member of the public can actually, as a citizen of the United States, can file for release of that, for copies of that. So I would expect within, if not days, within a number of weeks, once this case is formally closed off and filed with the authorities, that some more information might come out, or at least some substance behind what is in this statement. Guys, that's really it. I did say I suspect I was only going to do one more video at most on this, if ever there was developments. We got the developments now. I don't really envisage coming back to this case unless something really goes pear-shaped, or there's some serious revelation or whatever. A lot of people, it was a complicated case, but in many ways it turned out pretty much as I think a lot of people suspected. Look, I've said it before, I don't do conspiracy theories. There'll always be 50% of muppets out there who say, yeah, but Brian Laundrie's still alive. You know, it's the deep state. It's a false flag. You know, go away. If that's the case, you're on the wrong channel. This ain't the channel for you. The door's the wooden thing in the corner. Utilize it. I'm not interested in getting into conspiracies. I stick to facts. I stick to realities. If you want to live in a fantasy world of conspiracy theories, get lost. Thank you all for the recent subscriptions. I really do appreciate it. I'm trying to do my best here and stick to reality and facts. Now, I have a video coming up next week. It's an interview. It's a part of our publishing and writing series. That'll probably be my next video. After that, I might get back to the true crime stuff. I'll see. It depends. I'm not going to go into details. It was suggested to me again privately, would I do something on a very prominent case in recent weeks in Ireland, of a murder there. That case is sub judice. I'm not going near it now because an arrest and charge has been made in it. So I contemplated it, but no, I'm not going there. For legal reasons, I can't. Right. Thank you all. Please do. It does help with the YouTube algorithms. Thanks for the subscriptions. Please, before you exit, if you liked it, give the video a like. And share it by all means. It does help, and hopefully towards maybe the end of next week I'll see you in that Radio Spoil interview. It's a writing and publishing coming up, and maybe in the next month we'll have another true crime case to look at. Okay, everybody, take care and stay safe.